You might catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information. Forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. We're using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
Daryl Dittmer, what's up, dude?
Just enjoying the day, quite honestly. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm very much the same. Trying to enjoy this lovely day.
I'm not sure I know where you're located.
I'm in Pensacola, Florida. How about yourself?
North Georgia, up in the mountains.
Love it. That just was just in Blue Ridge a couple of years ago. It seems.
No way.
Yeah. It seems like it was yesterday. I can't wait to go back.
We're close. We're right there. We're in Mineral Bluff, which is right down the street from Blue Ridge.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
It's beautiful up there.
It really is. It's been a little chilly. It's finally starting to get warm, which just makes everything, to me, that much more enjoyable. I'm originally from Michigan, so I know how to freeze my tail off.
Yeah, you're seasoned.
I've had enough of that.
Yeah, how long have you been in Georgia now?
About 2.5 years.
Very nice.
Yeah, we love it. We actually most recently came from Massachusetts on Cape Cod, which was cool, and it was nice, and it was, the ocean and everything. It was beautiful, but a real, it was cold too. It was we had to get away from that. Although, unbeknownst to us, we bought this house, and it gets pretty chilly up here at elevation. So, we've had 0 degrees up here, which is insane. But whatever.
Yeah,
right.
I feel that. So you want to just like tell people a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the podcast circuit?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Well, what brings me to the podcast circuit is I have been recovering from addictions for quite some time, and I most recently published a book about my journey, and in an attempt to try to give back. But so where I came from was Michigan, which, Protestant work ethic. My dad was a mechanic. My mom took care of the kids, and we had what I would say at that time was kind of a typical Midwestern family upbringing. Go to church every Sunday, and you're allowed to do these things and believe these things, and you're not allowed to do other things or believe other things. And so fairly typical in terms of my upbringing. And then I got involved in alcohol and drugs at a pretty young age, and it escalated fairly quickly in terms of how it impacted my life and how it impacted me in terms of what I was taught and what I was, sort of allowed to do and not do. I was doing a lot of things that I wasn't allowed to do. And, just turned out to be not, what I wanted. And to make the story fairly short, it was kind of a joint effort to get me into a treatment program, which I spent 30 days inpatient. And I was young when I did that. So, I did my time in treatment, and I've been sober ever since, which, has been a little bit, but I was 19 when I went into treatment. So I think it's, one of those 80s Gen X kids, and, there are a whole bunch of us going into treatment at that time, and not too many, I think, came out. So.
Right. So you said you started using drugs and alcohol at a pretty early age. How old were you?
13. And yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first time I drank and actually got drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Same, I believe. Yeah. 13 seems to be a pretty common theme amongst a lot of addicts. It's like, yeah, I started pretty early. It's like, how early? Oh, I was 13. I've heard that answer more than I would like to hear. So
Right.
what do you think led you to using at such an early age? Like what was the dissatisfaction that you had in your life that seemed to be appeased by drugs and alcohol at the time?
Such a question for me because I don't it's hard to nail that down. Now I had a lot of insecurity and a lot of just inner turmoil, sort of that hole in the middle of me. And I believe that's what led me, and what led to that, I'm not certain. It could have been expectations of my parents. They were pretty strict. They were pretty, they had high expectations of us, and some we did okay and some we didn't. But it seemed like there was always a lot of pressure to do, certain things, which at their parents. So, I think there's some of that to be expected, but there was always just this insecurity around me. I was a high energy sort of troublemaking kid before drinking and drugs, and always taking risks and just doing silly things that I think a lot of kids weren't necessarily doing. So I've asked myself that question forever, and quite honestly, I don't know that I've come up with a concrete, hey, this happened or this trauma or this, et cetera. And, who knows? It could be something I just don't recall.
Right. So what would you say the impetus for you going into treatment was at such an early age? Like most people, I feel like if they get started at 13, like that's probably going to drag out for a while before they're actually like, hey, I need to go to treatment. Like for me, I didn't go to treatment until I was probably like 37, 38 years old.
Mhm.
So like what was it for you that you were like at 19, you were like, oh, I got to change this shit?
Yeah, there was a misery to me and to my life, and the drinking and drugging was constantly there, and I could yuck it up with the best of them in terms of just that sort of scene. But if I ever was with normal human beings, I was not comfortable, and I had that sort of hole in the middle of me. So I knew that was there. I didn't necessarily attribute it to the drinking and the drugs, though. And I was at the time I was confronted with treatment. I was 18, and then I crossed over into 19 before I went into treatment. So I was still trying to figure out life. I mean, there was a lot of just basic life stuff that I needed to get my head around. I do remember that, actually December 31st of 1984, I was seriously considering just not being around anymore and perhaps, ending this ride. So that part got me to treatment. And the other part, probably the bigger impetus was my mom was on my tail for a long time. And, and she basically said, look, I want you to go talk to this counselor. And it was up to me. And if I didn't, it was just kind of over in terms of that relationship for whatever that meant at that particular time. But I decided to go, and I decided to go see the drug and alcohol counselor.
Seems like it was a pretty good decision.
Yeah, it's worked out. It's worked out really well.
So what
And
was,
thank God.
yeah, right? No, for real. Absolutely. So what was early recovery like for you? What did that look like? You went through treatment, you were there for 30 days, you get out, what happens?
It sucked, honestly.
I love that.
It
I love your honesty.
it really did. And I'm going to say that, and there weren't it wasn't just, difficult times, but again, I think as I think about it now, I've got a couple of sons that have gone through the age of 18, 19, and I look at them and I think, and they're well past that now, but what did they have to figure out just in life, like just the basics, just
Right.
the basics of living. So being sober coupled with that made it difficult. And it was, I decided I wanted to, and it's weird because I was 19. I thought, oh, I have all this to make up for, and probably a lot of it was just disappointing so many people in my life. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. I didn't come from a college educated family, and there was really no great expectation for us to go to college, but I decided to once I got sober. So that was a difficult time. And, everybody around me is drinking, drugging, whatever. So so all of those things sort of put together, not to mention, I got sober with the 12 steps, and that was my introduction to living in a different way. So, there's a lot of work involved in that if that's something that we take seriously, which I did at that time. I needed to have a little bit of a roadmap because I couldn't figure it out myself. So all of those things made it difficult. I would say probably, for the first 2 to 5 years, quite challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. And that seems to be a pretty common theme. It's like, because you think when you're in treatment, you're like, I'm going to get out and things are going to be great. And it's like, then you get out and you're like, wait a minute. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah. I couldn't drive my car. I was like, wait a minute, I'm sober. I don't know how to drive. It was, yeah. And then everything after that.
Right. Yeah. No, I resonate with that. When I got out of treatment, I didn't even have a car. So I certainly couldn't drive. I didn't have a license. Oh man. But yeah, it's just crazy like how different life is going from a life of just addiction to being in recovery and not even like entertaining the idea of like, oh, let's go have some beer. Like no, like like doesn't even interest me anymore, you know? Like even the idea of it isn't even appealing to me anymore.
No, I agree. And it's a wonderful feeling. I, and it's been that way for quite some time. And it feels good to just not want to feel any way other than how I feel at any given moment. It's such a blessing.
Yeah. No, I can't agree with that anymore, man. Like that's accurate. It's funny too. It's like because there was so many times in life where it was like, that's that addict mind. Like this could just be a little better if I had this, or if I found the right combination of this and this and this, then this moment would be perfect. But it's like, and it's perfect anyway. Like I can't imagine putting anything on top of it and ruining it. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's fascinating how as we go along and for lack of better terminology, pursue life, right? And pursue whatever it is that we're, doing, and in addition to being. And yeah, it's a miracle. Honestly, I didn't know that such a contentment could exist. I had no idea, but I'm glad I stuck around to find out.
I'm glad you did too. So
Thank you.
you've mentioned a few times about how you had this hole inside of you that you kind of probably didn't even know was there at first. Did you ever find out what was missing?
Yes and no. I would say I filled the hole. The hole has been filled for a long time. And there's so many different things that could contribute, right? I'm a huge proponent of, treating our bodies right, our minds right, our emotions right, our hearts and our souls right. And exploring and learning and just sort of going down as many paths as we can to just figure this whole thing out, right? So, that's how it, I guess, transpired for me. And so in doing that, and I don't know exactly what it was that sort of put a cork in that hole, or I shouldn't say that. It's probably not the right way to term it, but it just, that hole became filled with a contentment and a fulfillment. And it's hard to say. I think it was a synergy of many things, of seeking and trying, for lack of better terminology, just trying to be better at my life. I feel like that's what filled that hole.
Right on. Do you have any like dedicated spiritual practice that you do, or are you not spiritual, or anything like that going on?
Yeah, very much so. And I guess I'll preface that with, growing up as the Protestant kid, grew up Lutheran, and, the church and all that sort of stuff. And so I really had to take all that stuff apart, when I first got sober, and for me, it was an understanding of, well, what they told me I have to believe just doesn't seem to be working out. It just doesn't seem to be resonating or filling that void. So I looked into a number of different things. I tried, different forms of meditation, and by reading books and John Kabat-Zinn and Thich Nhat Hanh and just whatever, just trying to figure that out. But I met a gentleman, and his name is Amit, and he's become a dear friend of mine, and he taught me primordial sound meditation, which is what this was probably 20 some years ago. And so he taught me that, and that's been something that's really resonated for me, because I'm a nut job. If I don't calm myself, if I don't, I mean, that's just part of it. So if I don't calm myself, and I don't allow myself quiet, and I don't take that time, to dive into that, I'm not, what I am if I do. And, and, and so that's every day. And usually about an hour in the morning of that, and also some pranayama, just breathing exercises. And that's the foundation, I would say, for everything in my life at this point.
No, I definitely 100% am in total alignment with that, because they're very much the same, right? Like my spirituality has been the cornerstone of my recovery, essentially, and I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at today without it. 100%. So
Very cool.
you wrote a book. I'm assuming it's a memoir. I haven't read it. I would like to read it. Tell me what sparked that fire? You're how can I give back? Was that like kind of the idea, or like, hey, this would be a fun thing to do? Or because I think we all know, if anybody who's attempted to write a book knows it's not a fun thing to do.
Yeah. It's interesting, because writing the book part was not the most difficult thing to do. The most difficult thing was sitting my butt down and just starting to write, and dedicating myself to writing. So how it started was, I was telling my wife some story about my past, my life, whatever, and I didn't get married till I was 39. So there was about 20 years of sobriety before I got married. And anyway, I tell my wife these stories, and she's like, well, you're just not that dude anymore. I'm like, no, I'm not that guy anymore at all. And then I said, remind me to write a book someday. And she's like, okay. And so anyway, fast forward, that was 20 years ago, and fast forward to 2023, and I finally got off my butt and decided to write it. Better late than never. But but I don't know that it would be the book that it is now had I written it 10 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever. It wouldn't be. It would be, there's a lot more that has happened, and a lot more has happened inside of me and life and experiences and all that sort of thing. So that was the beginning of it. And quite frankly, I wrote that book in about 2 months, and within 5 months I had written two. So the writing part wasn't as difficult. It was me sitting my butt down to write that I made difficult.
Right. That's the hard part, is just doing the work. Like
Yeah,
and that's anything, right? Like it comes easy once we actually just stop to do it. It's like, oh, this isn't as hard as I made it out to be in my mind.
exactly.
It's just getting past that barrier, right? Like this thing, that's the hang up, is that thing all the time. Oh man. So what's life look like for you today? Like, I mean, on the other side, I mean, you're obviously pretty far out of your recovery date. You've got some decades under your belt. Like, what's life like these days? You're in Georgia, in the mountains. It's beautiful. You wake up, get to see that every day. That's pretty cool.
It's really cool. And as it gets warmer, I meditate out in facing the sun outside with my feet in the grass, and I've beat the heck out of my body, so I can't do anything but sit in a chair, in terms of my meditation practice. But it's just the most wonderful thing as it gets warmer, and I can sit outside and do that. But life today is just, the podcast thing, which I've been really enjoying. I've been loving the conversations. I'm quite frankly loving the conversation we're having, and so it's trying new things. It's the book writing, and it's marketing things, it's podcasts, it's blog, it's all the things that I haven't done to this point in my life.
Mm.
And again, I'm a whack job. So, I was up at, it's, I was up at 5 this morning, which was sometimes a little late for me. And I'm up writing, and I'm doing stuff, and but I love it. I love it because it allows me to, I feel like I'm in a position now where I really can give something back, and, not from the perspective of, hey guys, you need to do this, more from the perspective of, hey, this is my experience and I want to share it with you. And if something resonates with you, that's wonderful. And that makes me happy. And if I'm, 20, 30, 40 years from now, if I'm gone and you remember something from that book, or you pick up that book and it helps you, I feel like I've done my job.
That's awesome. Any more books planned? Anything looming?
There's so much looming, and I, the great part of what's looming is most of the time we don't know what's looming, right?
Right.
Um, but yes, I have another book that's written. I'm in the process of formatting it right now, and the editing's done. It's probably going to come out in the third quarter of 2024. So I just finished the audio book for the first book not too long ago. So when I committed to one book, I committed to three.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's just feels like the right number and it feels like the right things that I want to get out there. So two are written. I've got one more to write. And I can't believe how busy I am with this sort of whirlwind of stuff, but it's wonderful. So
Ah,
that's how I spend my days.
that's awesome, man. How's the first book been received? Has it been doing pretty well, or any good responses from it? Do you have people reaching out to you after reading it and being like, "Hey, this really resonated with me"? And
I do. It's gotten a lot of wonderful reviews on Amazon, which I'm really happy about, and a lot of people who have mentioned that they've been helped. There are people that I changed some of the names in terms of inside the book, and just in terms of the stories, because not everybody wants to get tagged with the debauchery and the madness of what life was like, right? So but I've had those people who I haven't spoken with in, 10, 20, 30 years. And they've reached out to me and have said things like, that it was really cool that you wrote it and thank you. And it helped me. And, so those kinds of things are happening, which is wonderful and makes it so worth it. And also makes me want to continue to spread that message, whatever message that I can spread.
Right. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. It's like Dragnet.
And the guilty. Yeah.
And the guilty. Mostly the guilty. We don't need to protect the innocent.
The innocent are fine. The guilty, yeah, we just don't want to expose them.
What do the innocent have to lose? Nothing.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm getting actually in the process of writing a kind of a memoir myself, and I'm very much faced with the same thing. It's like, oh, I need to change these names.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And I get a little nervous too. I think, well, are some of these people gonna somehow, I don't know, just not be happy that I've done this? But it's not the same person. It's a different person in the book. So
right.
We're hoping, right?
My thing with it is as I'm writing, it's like, the people that know me know some of the people that these things happened with, and they could put the pieces together, even whether the name has changed or not, So it's like, do we just leave that out, or like, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
Still trying to figure all that out. I don't know. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah. I think, showering the book with disclaimers, on the copyright page. That was one of the things I did. Just, and it's not, it's, I don't know that it's anything too outlandish or crazy, but, people are not 19 anymore, and if they're my age and, they've been on that journey, especially when I was young, they're getting older, maybe they have kids, maybe kids don't know these stories, who knows? I just don't know. So we'll just have to take it as it comes, right?
No, I feel that. So being as far into your recovery as you are, and being a published author, and seeming like overall a pretty, like somebody who's pretty content and pretty satisfied with life. Like, what does success mean to you at this point in life?
I love that question, because I really do, because success used to mean, can I make some money? Can I, and I never, the reason I wanted to make money is because I didn't grow up with any. So, and I shouldn't say any, we were fine. We had food, clothing, and shelter. We had what we needed. All of our needs were met. Our wants, were intermittently met, and that was fine. But I wanted to make money because I wanted to experience some of the things that life can offer outside of me, and travel and that sort of thing. So that was kind of a big motivator for me. And, and that wasn't my definition of success necessarily back then. It was just something that I wanted to do. But at some point, what resonated for me was, in terms of the success and what that means, was, if I can wake up in the morning with a smile on my face and be happy about a new day, that was my definition of success. And that's been my definition of success for a long time. And that encompasses a lot of stuff. I mean, that encompasses treating myself well physically, treating myself well mentally, spiritually, emotionally, treating other people well. It's honesty. It's everything, it's all of these things that, and I'm sure you've heard this in the circles, but we're only as sick as our secrets, right? And those sorts of things, if I wake up and I don't have anything to hide, and I don't have something on my conscience, and I don't have 1,000 things that I haven't gotten to, and I don't have treating myself poorly, in terms of my body, and I don't have putting off, this or that, or not doing my my daily practices. You know, there's a lot that goes into waking up in the morning with a smile on my face. So I know that was a roundabout way to get to it, but that's my definition of success and has been for a long time.
I love that. I think that's a really wonderful definition for success. And
Thank you.
so, if you had any advice you could give to somebody who's either new in recovery or thinking about seeking recovery and is having some issues and knows that there's some, this other way to live, there's something else. What advice would you give to that person?
The first thing I would say is, and I think the real key is be teachable. And that's one thing I heard early on, that if I'm going to be teachable, I have a real shot. And if I maintain my willingness to do the things that I don't necessarily want to do, but that I know are the best for me and all concerned, I have to do those things. So for me, it's, I found a sponsor that was, is actually the reason I titled my book the way that I did. And one of the things that he said to me, but finding mentors, finding people who we want to be like, who we want to emulate. And when I say emulate, for me, it was, somebody who was exhibiting a contentedness and exhibiting a willingness to help and exhibiting a humility. I think those are the most important things going in, that, we have to put ourselves in a position where we surrender to a large extent and allow ourselves to be taught, and probably as important, do the work.
Fantastic. Well, Daryl, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Where can people find you at? Where can they find the book at? And when can we have another conversation? I'd love to interview you again when the next book comes out. So,
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you. I have a website. It's www.daryl, D-A-R-Y-L, Dittmer, D-I-T-T-M-E-R.com. Anybody who wants to reach out via email, please feel free. Always willing to share thoughts or help or whatever I can. My email is daryl@daryldittmer.com. And my book is called When I Stop Fighting: The Unexpected Joy of Getting My Head Out of My Ass. And that is available on Amazon.
I love that title, by the way. That's such a good title.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me send some thanks to your sponsor for that title.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. And I hope you continue your success, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Justin. You as well. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thanks.